Life has challenges. This is a photograph of a young man. He checked out the papers. Nice sunny day. Plan. Go for a nice walk on the boardwalk. And sure enough, when he got to the boardwalk, it started raining. Fortunately, there was a man selling umbrellas, so he went for a walk anyways, walking along the boardwalk, because he wasn't expecting rain. He was expecting a nice sunny day. But sometimes we're expecting X and something other than X happens. Life has challenges. Financial, relational, occupational, physical, social, cultural. Something unexpected. And when that something unexpected comes, that challenge comes, it can be pretty formidable. Like this little boy and the big wrestler is going to get whooped. And for the big wrestler, that's the negative emotion program. And sometimes it looks so formidable, you don't have a chance because emotion is pretty strong. And when that emotion gets very strong, it becomes disempowering. Disempowering, like somebody's in jail. And the people that study this phenomena, the negative emotion disempowerment phenomena, here's one lady, studies it and says depression is like a prison where you're both the suffering prisoner and the cruel jailer, which means you have a key to get out, but you don't use the key to get out, you keep yourself in prison. You don't have to stay in prison, you have to stay caught in negative emotions. You have a key, you can get out. But sometimes people stay. And the range of negative emotions is vast, and the fact of the matter is it happens to everyone. Unexpected challenges. And then how you deal with those challenges can result in a negative emotion. And it gets sometimes very extreme. Hopelessness. Sometimes loneliness. You may or not know this. In England, they have they have a ministry for loneliness in the government. And the reason is the government found there was so much expenditure for people that were feeling and captured by feelings of loneliness. They wanted to be proactive and have a ministry of loneliness so they could help people save money for the country because it's an expensive program, loneliness. There's songs about it for a reason. The Beatles had a famous song. I don't know if you know the Beatles song. Where are all the lonely people? Where have they all come from? Where do they belong? Because it's not just England. It's the world. Anger. Maybe you know somebody like this. And when anger takes over, it takes over. When someone loses control by that emotion. Another one is self-sabotage. I know some people like this. If there isn't a problem, they create one. And then when they go into this, the parasympathetic nervous system kicks up, then they get really excited because there's difficulty. And then when the difficulty subsides, they find another one. It's just they go from one calamity or one crisis to the next. It's self-created, self-sabotage. Sometimes anxiety. And when one is on the receiving end of some of these things, there's another negative emotion called blame and shame. And they did it to me, anger, that kind of anger, resentment. Some people study this. There's one gentleman that studies it, Dr. David Hawkins. He wrote a book, and his studies show here's some negative emotions going up to positive emotions. And he found that low consciousness is gravity for negative emotions. At the very bottom, almost at the very bottom, is shame and guilt. It's even darker than fear. And fear is darker than anger. Then it starts getting a little bit lighter. Courage, willing, reason. I find a couple things I find interesting. Gratitude is a lighter emotion even than love. Isn't that interesting? Now, how do they do this? Over here, there's vibrational frequencies in hertz. So they measure the brain waves when this emotion, that emotion, the other emotion, and they're shorter brain waves when it's a darker emotion, and a higher brain waves when it's high vibration and frequency. And so when there's higher consciousness, it's higher emotions. Lower consciousness, lower emotions. So the idea is to spend less time down here and more time up there. And something they have found that helps is meditation. So we're going to get to meditation in a moment. We all know the experience of positive emotions. You go out of your way to do something for another person. Little old lady in a wheelchair and helping her cross the street. You feel something. An act of kindness. Joy, celebrating with yourself or with others some good fortune. The positive emotion of honesty may be like uncomfortable a little bit, but there's a feeling when you're just being very truthful, very straight, very honest. That's a positive emotion. Or doing some service for another. They're related. Forgiveness, supposing you're holding on to something. And you decide, that's not good. And how do I get rid of that negative emotion? Forgiveness. And then you feel lighter. You feel another emotion. So there's a little slide that's going to come up to redirect emotions away from the dark towards light. Peace. Okay, there's 3 sections where you're going to talk with somebody. You can talk with this little girl or your friends or whoever you want to talk with. This boy, he's already talking. Okay, in pairs or more, reflect. What's the purpose in coming here? The sankalpa, the purpose, intention in coming here to this little gathering. And are there some repeated negative emotions that you experience, and what would you like to do about it? Would you like to experience some positive emotions? What do you do about it? So we're going to take a few minutes. This is integrating, and so it'll help you carry home rather than just information. Okay, so let's go back. When you're ready, find someone to have a conversation with.
I would want to turn this around. I want to turn this situation around. Negative to positive. So, it's very good. I think it's part and parcel.
Okay, we're going to move along. The next section is where the negative emotions come from. We looked at some positive, negative. Now, from where do they arise? And one of the ways of understanding where they arise from is using the metaphor of a computer. And with a computer, there's three things. There's hardware, software, and a user. And without all three, you don't have a computer. So the self, that's our physical, the mental, that's like the software, and the spiritual, that's the user. So the software, hardware can sit there, the body and the mind can sit there, but it has to be an operator. So in modern times, lots of hardware, lots of physical facilities, lots of hardware improvements. Well done, well done. More comforts, more conveniences, yet modern life has led to a lot of negative emotions. Here's a chart. This is the CDC. You know what CDC is. You have something similar here in Singapore? Contagious disease. They study it. You know, like when the COVID thing went on, CDC was telling everybody, this is what's going on. It's okay. This is CDC statistics going back to 68, and its chart ends at 2010, and this is the reported clinical mental disorders. It's on the rise, dramatically on the rise. Not just people that are feeling upset or depression. This is mental disorder. It's pretty dramatic, isn't it? Here's some statistics, 2 pages of statistics. Some persons call it a virus. That's why it's under CDC. Anxiety disorders. Anxiety disorders. Most common mental illness in the U.S. 40 million adults in the U.S., and that's almost 20% of the population every year. Almost. World Health Organization has a nice statistic. 300 million people around the world have depression, clinical depression. China doesn't like to advertise its problems, but employees were in a survey, top 30 cities employees, no surprise, signs of agitation, almost 80%, a little over 60, almost 60% anxiety, and haunted by depression, 38%. But one of the first times I gave this presentation was in Kunming in China, because the person that organized it was an employee of China Eastern Airlines, which is like, well, at least in America, is United in America, and one of the major airlines in China, China Eastern. And they were an executive level person. So they organized the event. They pulled me to the side afterwards and said, just this morning, one of our executives jumped from the 7th floor window and ended up not alive when they hit the sidewalk. And so immediately, this is just conversation, the executives of that division made a command that everybody that's in this building must take a seminar on meditation, because it's known meditation helps lift consciousness and helps relieve one of the lower modes, lower influences, and higher consciousness. Here's more statistics. In the world, in the United States, 16.2 million, and that's almost 7% of all adults in 1 year had a major, this is like clinical, major depressive episode in 1 year. Not for their life, just in 1 year. 15% of the adult population will experience depression at some point in their life. U.S. statistics again. 3.2 million adolescents. Adolescents are targets, and girls more than boys. 13% of U.S. population of adolescent girls have experienced a major depressive episode, at least during the course of their teenage life, from 12 to 17. It's a big statistic. So, more girls than boys. And the economic burden, just in the United States, $210 billion per year. So they probably should have a ministry of loneliness and a ministry of all the other ones, because it's a problem. And besides it's costly, it's not a nice thing to go through. So, statistic-wise, it's a real deal. So, they rise within the mind, but it has something to do with the soul experiencing the effects of the mind and identifying with the effects of the mind. It's a combination pieces, people that study this situation. Situations external, impressions from our past experience. And this is a big one. Impressions from past experience. And it could be this lifetime or a previous lifetime. Here's the Sanskrit phrase is anta karana. Anta means within, karana means cause. The cause is within. So here's a photograph of a man on a hot summer day, really hot. He's standing by the edge of a lake, ready to take a jump into the lake. And all of a sudden, some past experience triggers an emotion inside him. He starts to panic because in this life or previous life, there was a near-death experience, or maybe he drowned. And just seeing the water, which is relief from the heat of this hot summer day, it grips him. His parasympathetic nervous system doesn't ask. It just acts. He controls. Now, I don't know if I have some experience, not with water, but I just share. I didn't remember this so much later. My brother, I'm the youngest child of 5. The oldest one was my brother, 9 years older, and then 3 in between, and then little me. And my brother told me this later, that from the day I was born, we shared a room. I had a big brother in my room. And as I grew up, boys will be boys. He did things that boys do. He would wrestle. And because my brother was 9 years older, he would always win, which is okay. But one of the signs that it was over was he'd take a pillow, put a pillow over my head. And I didn't remember that, but it was antakara, it was stored within, because one time we're in a high school thing, going out to see a fort overlooking some place where there was a military fort at one time overseeing two rivers intersecting, and so they're guarding the two rivers. So we went around and saw the this and the that and the other thing. And one of the things we saw was where they put prisoners. So where they had put prisoners, there was kind of like a cave thing. And so we all climbed into it, just playful kids, we climbed into the cave. And I went in first, very adventuresome, until something happened. And claustrophobia kicked in. And I had to get out. And it wasn't an option. It wasn't like, be patient, I didn't scream. I pushed. And I got out. And it was like, where did that come from? The past impression. And then I remembered where it came from. It was a past experience. And having a pillow over my head so many times. Like, it's not like I couldn't breathe. My brother wasn't, murderous. But it was the nervous system registered it. So when it's in a closed situation, so many times something that triggers a negative emotion comes from something in the past. Not always, but it's often. And as we're passing through the maze of life, we don't exactly know what to expect. Just like the beginning point is, some unexpected things happen in life. And then how are you going to respond to that which is unexpected? In many cases, you draw upon past experience. Intelligent people do that, and conditioned people do that too. So the condition of some past negative experience can rule your life. So one of the things that's recommended by people who train others who are undergoing negative emotions that get triggered is to think of the mind being like a television. And when you're looking at the television screen, it's just the screen. And there's images on the screen, and then you're the observer of the images on the screen. And the images on the screen can be violence. They call it action movies. Or it can be romance. Or it can be humor. It can be whatever it is. And the idea is, through media, like television, it's to stimulate some emotion one way or another way. So one of the trainings of people that deal with people that have negative emotions that get triggered too easily, see the mind which carries the emotion. It's just like a blank TV screen. And there's an image, and you're the viewer of the image, but you're not what's in the image. There's a distinction between the user, the software, and the hardware. It's a little trick it's not, full self-realization, but it's a trick. In many cases, the screen, what the mind says, is not transparent to what's really going on. And circumstances that are really going on are misread to be something that's from the past. Here's an example. This is a lady that works at a 1-800-suicide hotline. So one day, she got a call. I'm thinking of committing suicide. Really? Tell me about it. Well, what happened was, my boyfriend didn't answer my phone call. How many times? Once. I'm ready to commit suicide. So this is a trained person, not just a volunteer. So she started asking about the past. And sure enough, there was an internal impression. The internal impression was the young woman came from a broken home. And there was this fear of loneliness when her boyfriend didn't answer her phone call once. Disproportionate to the circumstance. One can work the other way with some joy that has nothing to do with the circumstance. So we're going to do another little interactive session. And it tells you what to do. Has there been some time in your life in the past where you overreacted? A situation was X and you read it more than X. Or maybe the other way around. You're honored for something that you really didn't do. You're praised and appreciated for something that really has nothing to do with you. What did you learn from that? Or here's another one, similar. Somebody gets upset, and you find out they're upset with you. And why are they upset with you? Because they thought you said something, did something with this motive or that intention. And you're like, what? Where did that come from? It wasn't like that, it was like this. They go, no, it was like that. And their feeling carries on. So, 3-4 minutes, go team, go. Discussion time.
Exactly the situation I put it negative aspects, which helps me in my job. Otherwise, it's not good. So, the learning from such exaggerations is that belief because his plans are better than yours and have something to know what the negative situation looks like, but it turns out to be sometimes it's a matter of people can definitely just get it wrong instead of just go down the negative.
Okay. We're ready to move on. The next section is called the avalanche effect. That is, if you don't catch the negative emotion in an early stage, it can snowball, or get bigger, crush you. One of the places I visit lots of different places. One of the places is Alaska. In Alaska, there's lots of this. There's mountains with snow caps. And I learned this from visiting Alaska. Generally speaking, on mountaintops, there's packed snow. And on top of the packed snow, there may be light snow. And when a little bit of light snow towards the top starts to roll down the mountain, a it gathers more light snow, more light snow, more light snow, and they become lethal. They become an avalanche. That's what an avalanche is. So I learned this. The way that people that do like to climb mountains, they take these, not real bullets, but whatever you call it, artificial bullets, and shoot an artificial bullet towards the top upper part of a mountain after a light snow. And if nothing happens, they can climb that mountain. Because otherwise, you can get buried and finished from the avalanche effect. And it's discussed in principle in Bhagavad Gita. There's by contemplating an object of the sense. That's where it starts. You think about something. And with that think about something, then there's a feeling about that something. I like it, I don't like it, whatever it is. If I don't like it, then I want to get rid of it. If I want to get rid of it, it can become an obsession. And when the obsession is not satisfied, you can move into destructive action, self-destructive or other destructive action. So principles to check the avalanche effect, is catch it in the early stage. Differentiate between the mind and the self. Just like there's the mirror, or the TV screen was the other example, and you see an image. But the image that's in the mirror, that's not the person, it's just the image. It's a reflection. And for that matter, the person that's observing is not their body, but they're the observer within the body. So the practice of dealing with negative emotions, one of them is that distinction between the observer of the emotion and the emotion. And then when there's this emotion, you can redirect emotion. It's possible. If you're in this mood of detachment, supposing, I've had this experience, supposing there's a puddle of water's rushing and gushing and going over this way. Very simple. You make a line and give the water direction a different course to go. It starts going in that direction instead of that direction. Give the emotion, similarly, rather than deny it, give the emotion a place to go. Redirect the emotion. Redirect your thoughts, and then the emotions that follow the thoughts. However, this is a verse from Bhagavad Gita. You recognize the verse? The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. So you can try to redirect, but sometimes it's very, very strong. And therefore, there's another level besides trying to control the mind, trying to control the senses which carry the mind. Purity. Purity is the force. Now, how it works. This was created for me by a teenager. Teenagers are very creative sometimes. Are you creative? No. This young man, he's really creative. So I asked him, "Can you do it?" He said, "Yeah." So if it works, that's great. It's 3 sets of doors, and then the doors open, and then another set of doors, and then those doors open, then another set of doors, and those doors open. And you get to the self. The body, mind, heart, self. Along with some music. Okay, let's see if it works. No, it's not working. Okay. Let's try this. There we go. The physical body, go through that set of doors. Then another set of doors, that's the mind. We're going to go for the self. But then there's the heart. Like according to the 7 sets of doors, right? And then there's the self within. But the place is Vrindavan, and the self, that's where the self belongs. So if we get caught in the external, then we're not connecting with who we really are. So purity means to connect with who you really are. So it takes practice, but it's who we really are, so it's certainly accessible. And one of the principal methods is meditation, is of mantra meditation amongst types of meditation is most effective. They've done studies, scientific studies. I won't go into all of it. But meditation connected with sound is more effective than meditation not connected with sound for XYZ reasons. But rather than going into that, it's the path to purity. And so sounds, a little sharing. One year I was in Boston, visiting the Boston Temple, and it was around Christmas time. Not a great idea to be in Boston at Christmas time because it's cold, but that's what was going on. And so it was the graduate school of Harvard Divinity School, graduate assembly, and they were previewing a movie made by some grad students to describe spirituality in the world today. So we were to watch the movie and then critique it. So they had 3 speakers. A speaker from Christian tradition, a speaker from the Muslim tradition, the one speaker from the Hindu tradition, so they called the temple. So I was the token Hindu. We're sitting in this group, professor, and me. And I was intimidated because I know these personalities. They're not just Harvard Divinity School professors. I know them by name. They're elevated persons. So, the movie, and then we were to critique the movie. And I was the last one to critique. And my comment was, for me, the most powerful thing in the movie was sound. And one of the things in the movie was that the main character was rowing a boat. You could hear the gentle movements of the little canoe going through a lake. When he pulled the canoe up on the shore, you could hear the crunch as the canoe went up on the shore. And then he looked up, and there was a Buddhist monk. And as he approached the Buddhist monk, very calmly, the Buddhist monk hit one of those brass bowls with a mallet. Boom. It's powerful. It's one of the methods that they use to focus the meditation. Just drive other thoughts away and just focus on the sound. So what to speak of, that sound is not just a brass bowl, but it's a sacred sound. Very powerful. Most powerful method of meditation. There's studies to demonstrate this. So by sacred sound meditation, it helps still the mind, and when the mind becomes stilled, how many here do some type of meditation? Some. Okay. Good. Patanjali Yoga Sutras. Patanjali is an ancient author that was prolific, and especially because it's sutras, little terse sayings. He described the essence of what yoga is. And yoga is, by definition, something that diminishes the swirlings of the mind. Chitta vritti in Sanskrit. Chitta, consciousness or the mind. Vritti, the waves. It's meant, yoga is meant to still the movements of the waves of the mind. So anything that does like that, it helps. meditation that has that objective, and you do it on a regular basis that he describes with the practice of yoga includes something that you do regularly, three things. Something you do every day, something that you do for an extended period of time, and the third quality is you have confidence it's going to take you to a good place. All three. In alignment. 1, 2, 3. That's yoga practice and meditation practice. And of the meditation methods, sound meditation, sacred sound meditation best. So the mind can become controlled, the body can become stabilized, not agitated, and then like those little doors opening, you can get in touch with yourself. They work. When I grew up, I was a little boy one time. And when I was a little boy, my family lived by a lake. The lake was so pure, it was a standard. They drank water directly from the lake without water purification. It was that kind of a lake. And I spent lots of time in the water. I like scuba diving and, snorkeling and swimming, and I like water sports. So I had this experience when it's turbulent upstairs, the sky, the wind is moving, there's waves, and then the bottom of the water, you can't see very well down into the bottom of the water. But when it's calm, you can see 30 feet, 40 feet, all the way to the bottom of the lake. Same. When the mind becomes more calm, especially by these three things that Patanjali says, something you do every day, something you do for a prolonged period of time with faith, and you connect with the right principle, sound, sacred sound, and you can perceive the self. Not just say, yes, I accept, there must be, in principle. You can perceive the presence of the soul through the process of dhyan, meditation. And sound meditation is the best. So, yeah. Bhagavad Gita 1.7, Bhagavatam 177. Simply by giving oral reception to Vedic sounds, the feeling for loving devotional service sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. That's a Bhagavatam teaching. Now, practically speaking, it also works. This is some photographs, a little text about a Swedish scientist, medical doctor, Dr. Hans Jenny. He was curious, so he did some experiments with sound. And he created what he called a tonoscope sound. And it had three parts. That which generated the sound, that which directed the sound that was generated, and then a vibration surface. So when the sound hit the vibration surface, he put powder, sometimes metal plate, sometimes membrane, sometimes. He changed things around to see how it would work. And he found that sound creates patterns. And he found that the sound of Om creates that pattern. And that here's the depiction of that pattern that he took photographs of. Here's the photograph. Now what's over here, that's a yantra. And a yantra that's created by the sound Om is the yantra of Vaikuntha. So it's called the Shri yantra. The yantra is a two-dimensional depiction of something that's beyond two dimensions. The It's a depiction of the spiritual world in 2 dimensions. It's a picture. So they say, feel the vibration. It works. No. It takes doing every day for a prolonged period of time with faith to get the full effect. But even if you're not doing it so regularly, if the impact is there on consciousness, on the soul itself, but to get the cleared state of consciousness, those are the 3 factors that are needed. And there's more research, but I'll stop there. So we all know about the Hare Krishna mantra, and it's a very special mantra. It's meant specifically to do these things that Lord Chaitanya says it will do. Cleanses the mind, extinguishes the blazing fire of material existence, and so on. There's power in the mantra. We just have to regularly expose ourselves to the mantra in a state of mindfulness, or being attentive to that sound. Attentive as possible. There's the topic. Art of meditation, overcoming negative emotions. This is just the beginning. This seminar is a 4-part series, and I'm just doing the introduction with all of you. Discussion. Look at this, I'm still within time. I have 15 minutes. Yes? Yeah? Not bad. I usually talk too long. Yeah. Oh, come on. It's
like when we are trying to meditation, when we are not think of anything else, just focus on meditation.
Yeah, I mean, when mind doesn't move. Chitta vritti, the movements, vritti means waves. Chitta means consciousness or mind. When the wave of the mind subsides, and they stay like that. And that's just the mind. Because that's an indicator of something. It's an indicator of what's going, the mind is subtle. It's the 6th sense. And then there's the 5. And then there's the 6th. And if it's just whatever's going on out there, it's okay. Because the mind is fixed. It's like your question is like, how do you know when you've had enough to eat? You have to ask somebody, how do I know if I've had enough to eat? You can tell them. Okay, I'm full. No, a little more of this, a little more of that. No. Shanti and peaceful. Even when there's impetus, the mind remains peaceful. A similar word to Shanti or peace is dhira. D-H-I-R-A. Even when there's cause of disturbance, one remains undisturbed. That's dhira. Or one is peaceful. Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
What is the difference between the mind?
Okay. You heard a question? Shall I repeat it? Repeat it. What is the difference between the sound of Om Pranava and the Hare Krishna mantra? In principle, they're from the same spiritual platform. One reveals the name form, qualities, and pastimes of the Supreme Person. And the other is indicating that realm where the name, form, qualities, and activities of the Supreme Person are situated. So one is impersonal, the other is personal. Now, there's details that our acharyas have presented. I'm not too familiar, enough familiar that I could explain them. But put in simple language, they're qualitatively one, but quantitatively different. There's one spiritual, the other's spiritual. One is as spiritual as the other one is spiritual. But it's indicating, Om is indicating that realm, the existential realm of beyond matter. And chanting Om carries you there, if you attend to it carefully. And the Hare Krishna mantra brings you to the Bhagavan feature of that transcendental realm. At once. It's gradual. The realization is gradual. But from the name, the transcendentalness of the name, then the form becomes revealed. The form of Krishna. Or like here, Radha Krishna. I mean, you're seeing here, I'm seeing here. Same here. Yeah.
One more question. We will chant Hare Krishna mantra. For example, we can chant, now I will speak. There is an actual sound vibration that I can hear. Ideally, that is what is prescribed. But I can also chant the same thing in my mind.
Yes.
In my mind.
Yes.
And chanting in my mind.
Yes.
And I can hear that, provided that I'm cautious and sensitive enough to that sound. But definitely, chanting aloud, but loud is always better because our senses are imperfect and it always helps if there's sound vibration to be prescribed.
Yes.
So, if there is a deaf person, for example, if the person is deaf,
The person?
who is deaf, unable to hear.
Okay. Now, a deaf person, how do they benefit?
Yes. Maybe from the mind.
Yes. And the sound acts on the soul directly. That which is going on in the mind is still in the mind. The sound goes directly to the soul. So whether a person that's deaf can hear, although, hear the sound even though this part of the body is not working, that part of the body is working. The soul. So it goes directly to the soul. Next question.
So that is also called sound vibration.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's the sound, but the sound heard by the soul.
Yes. And there's a second important point. Sound effects matter. This is a whole other presentation. But even material sound. And one of the things that Hans Jenny did is he played, through the tonoscope, he generated notes of the musical scale. And the pattern that forms from this note and that note and the other note, it's predictable. You can just make scattered powder on a membrane and this note, and it's always going to produce this geometric pattern. It'll bounce around and bounce around. So sound has form. And sound creates form because it has form. The sound effects matter. And, there's the material portion. Even if the auditory sense is not working, the sound is still affecting matter. It may not register through our faculty of hearing, but it's acting on matter. And it's acting on the mind. Even the auditory sense may not read it. The body is, the mind is, and the soul is. Let's step out of the way. Anything else?
We don't have a question in the previous slide.
what's your question?
Actually, in that there was a technique to go beyond the reflection, then they are in the mind, the image is formed on the mind, something like that. So I had a question that
Well, you want me to find the slide?
Yeah.
That one?
No,
Huh?
The television, the
The
TV.
television slide, okay. Can I elaborate? Okay. It's very similar to the girl looking at the mirror. Instead of a mirror, it's a TV screen. The TV screen is the mind. I mean, cinematographics are music, cinema, drama. The purpose is to stimulate emotion. Where does emotion take place? In the mind. So you're the viewer of the TV screen, or the cinema, or the music, or the drama, and it's creating an impression. That impression that it's creating is in the mind. But step back, and you're not the drama, you're not the cinema, you're not the music, you're the observer of, the experiencer of. So this is meant in the television as detach yourself from the mind, from the visual, and then what the visual creates is the emotion. So like action movies, why is there lots and lots and lots, one of the reasons, lots of violence, there's lots of violence in action movies. They call it action movies, it's violence. Or crime, or romance, or something. And so it stimulates that emotion. Although it's just the screen, like a TV screen. So the idea is for persons that are training individuals who are caught up in the movie, it's just a movie. What's going on in the mind is not you. It's different than you. But here's a practical discipline. As I was finding out about mantra meditation, I was living in a house where there were a group of people that each were practicing something different. So one of the persons in the house that I was living in, the undergraduate school, they were practitioners of Zazen. So, because the city where I was going to school, about an hour and a half away is another city, and there was a Zen teacher set up a Zendo, and he was teaching Zazen. So we in our house we had a little Zendo. We followed. And the practice is, and I did this every day for close to a year. Early in the morning, up, bath, sit in a little Zendo, and do Zazen. So here's how it goes. It's this. It's, here comes a thought. Now, generally speaking, when people have thoughts, they interact with their thoughts. They identify with their thoughts, and then they have some emotion connected to the thought. I want, but I don't. Get rid of it. Get rid of that, or get rid of the emotion, or whatever. That becomes a reality. It's the thought that's in the mind. Zazen says no. It's just like the TV screen, or their metaphor is, it's just like the sky, and here comes a cloud in the sky. There's the thought. When you don't interact with it, you just let it go. And it goes. And here comes another thought, and here comes several other thoughts, and scattered thoughts, and And eventually it's a clear sky. Peaceful, shanti. And my experience was, as soon as I finished that meditation session, the mind gets cluttered up again. And cluttered with, because the conclusion I reached was, it's artificial. You can get numb, and you can be anesthetized and not experience emotion. But it's artificial. It's not natural. So natural is purity, not just cessation of thought. Or detach yourself from thought by one method or another. Zen has a certain method. There are probably other brands or divisions, but that's what this particular fellow was teaching in the nearby Zen ashram. You have something.
That's what you're trying to say here is that everything is walking in front of us like a movie.
Yeah, I like that.
In a real world.
Objects of the senses, and the mind is the place where all that information goes.
To reject that this thing is important to us and to define a relevance to this thing, we can basically start rejecting it internally that is not useful, is not useful. And something on which our mind situates for a longer time, that becomes every part of our life.
Yeah, that's what Krishna consciousness is. You're selective about what you're attentive to. Anukuyasya sankalpa pratikuyasya varjanam. There's 6 principles of surrender. Things that are favorable, you accept. Things that are unfavorable, you just leave them. And so the end is, you're not cluttered with useless stuff. Just because it's interesting, or I'm curious, what's this, what's that. Like child play. Yes.
The example of the Zen meditation you gave,
Yeah.
it didn't work because, if I understand correctly,
It's artificial.
that the emptiness of mind is artificial.
Yes.
That's why we situate our mind on Krishna.
Yes.
It's not artificial.
That's correct. That's correct.
Mind has to be.
Now, when the eye is fixed on Krishna, there's emotions.
Right.
That's Rupa Goswami.
Right.
The science of emotion is centered on transcendence.
Right.
It's not to anesthetize emotion.
Right. So the nature of the mind is to situate in something. Emptiness is artificial.
It's artificial.
And so that's why we focus on this.
Yeah. Now, to all credit where credit is due, it was a very powerful discipline, but artificial. You don't live in that realm. So some persons try to live in that realm, like that's all they want to do. Just become a monk, and that's all they want to do. But it's still, an anesthesia. It's not this natural state of consciousness. It's susupti. It's not natural. It's natural. Awake to what? Transcendence. What transcendence? How do you access transcendence? Consciousness of transcendence. There are different, doctrines that help one to try to get to that place where you're in touch with eternality, Sat. But that's not Sat. Its negation is not Sat.
We don't chant to feel like other.
Well, it's not the same as others, because the sound is going to have its effect even if you're not attentive. So you can do some other attentive or not attentive, but it doesn't have the same effect, because it's not the sound. It's like her question of the relationship between Om and Hare Krishna. Supposing one chants Om inattentively, it's different, long-term different, than if you just meditate on a candle. Or meditate on the that's in Zen, just a blank wall. Or like this, the TV screen, there's no image on the TV screen. So we're saying the same thing, just the language is different, right? Okay. I think we should add, look at this, it's 19 minutes after the hour. You're going to blow the whistle? Who's got it? Okay, one last question.
Chanting. So along with the mantra sound, if we hear another sound, so
It depends what you're attentive to. Just like right now. Listen carefully. There's a fan. It's making a sound. But when you're absorbed in another sound, you don't hear it unless you're like, oh yeah, there's the fan. The air conditioning fan. It's a sound. It depends what you're attentive to. Okay. You want to wrap up? Do your wrap up.
Thank you.